Ready? Welcome to Sea View Circle, our recap podcast where we review our favorite television shows and movies of the past, present, and sometimes future. And in the process, we talk about different styles and fashions that are often lost to the decades.
And we do all of this in service of our end goal of discovering just how highbrow or lowbrow our viewing taste is, right? What are we doing today?
Well, today we've got season 3, episode 2 of Yellowjackets.
Yes, now we just watched the first episode, and then we went right into the recording.
Right into the second
and then
one.
Because the premiere day there are 2 episodes, we went right back to watch the second episode.
So it's a double duty today, but the title of the episode is called Dislocation.
Now, before we move on, I just want to say we forgot to mention in the last episode for It Girl that the writers were Jonathan Lisco, Bart Nickerson, and Ashley Lyle, and the director was Bart Nickerson. Bart Nickerson and Ashley Lyle are the show creators and showrunners.
The writers of this episode called Dislocation are Rich Monahan and Ameni Rosa. I hope I pronounced that right. The director is Billy Woodruff, and as far as the IMDb
taken from
goes, the Yellowjackets are stuck deciding whether to track down a missing teammate or just trip out on mushrooms. Shauna secures a spot on the world's most unsupportive partner list. She sure does, doesn't she?
I have to say, when I saw that synopsis before, we failed to put that at the end of our last episode, but it's okay, back to back, you get it. It's misleading. It really is misleading. I think it's totally misleading. Because here you are thinking ahead of time, oh, they're going to be trying to track down Ben, Coach Ben. But no, they're tracking down Mari.
They're tracking down Mari.
We're going to get to it. But before we do, we have another postcard from the Edge.
Wow.
Would you like to read this for us?
I guess I could read it. I better put glasses on. Unfortunately, I can't see without them. So this comes from a TikTok comment. This is MJ. On our short-lifted from our season 2 recap that questioned the origin of Lottie's spiritual supernatural powers. Little bit of both here. Lottie's visions and symptoms don't match schizophrenia, but she certainly has mental illness. I think the wilderness exacerbated it. I'd agree. Yeah. I think it's coming more apparent.
We were kind of talking about it when we were watching the last episode too, and actually we had another, I forgot to print it out, but we had another Gmail sent to us from someone, I believe her name was Monica. I could look it up, but similar thing. They were appreciating that we had that conversation about whether or not Lottie's spirituality was really real or whether it was a product of her mental illness. And I think, again, I'm happy that they're exploring it. And ironically, here we go. Here we are in episode 2. It comes into play.
Yeah, I definitely would say to you at this point now in the series, it's becoming way more apparent. I think before this, I think we were all a little like, no, is it really the spiritual, da-da-da-da-da. So,
they're definitely underlining this character and what's going on here and telling us, okay, this is what's going on.
Yeah, and I don't want to get out of sequence, but, definitely in this episode, you see several different things that keep showing that, like, okay, she's like poking the bear.
She sure is.
She's totally
She did it actually with a knife, too, in episode 10 of season 1.
She's poking the bear with a lot of mushrooms.
This time,
Magic mushrooms.
So we want to just thank you, MJ, for leaving that comment over on TikTok. If you would like to send us a comment or a question, you may do so on our Instagram, which is at seeviewcircle, which is SEEVIEW Circle. You can also send us a message on anywhere, really. YouTube, Seaview Circle, TikTok, Seaview Circle, Bluesky, although we're not as active on Bluesky. We need to do some more on there. And then you can also send us a Gmail, send us a seeviewcircle@gmail, which Monica did there.
And you know what? Maybe sometime in the future, we'll do something like we did in the past with our dreaming room where we did a telethon.
Yes.
Which was really fun during COVID to connect people up. Like, call in.
Yeah.
But we're not doing that yet.
That was fun.
Yeah, we could do that. If we do a live show, maybe we'll do a call in. That'd be really great. Well,
here we are with the episode called Dislocation. We have the very first scene. I believe we can see that dislocation has a double meaning here because not only has Mari dislocated her knee as she's fallen into this pit, but she is also currently dislocated from the group And so is Coach Ben, right? So this is very interesting.
Very interesting.
Right?
And then, of course, then we also have crazy Shauna's back in the, teen timeline. She's digging up her baby and talking to her baby.
Oh my God, that was so shocking when I saw that. I'm like, what is she doing? And then obviously there's a tail end to this at the end of the episode, but I was thinking, well, what is she doing in that moment? Is she's saying, well, I didn't want to participate in whatever that ceremony was the night before. I want this to be my own personal moment with my child. Remember, she has that thing. She always says, it's just you and me against the world, whatever. So she wants to have this private moment. But then there's another part of me that thinks like, maybe she's worried that they're going to dig up that baby. You need it,
Well, it sounds to me, though, they do have
bones.
a little bit better food supply right now.
Yes.
It is springtime. It's said in the episode
Yes,
that...
Akila has been communicating with the animals and providing rabbits and ducks.
Yes, and then there was also another mention later that, we don't do that anymore.
Yes.
From Mari.
Oh, that's really fun.
Yeah, but we'll get into it.
Now, let's get into Shauna as an adult, because to me, she's losing it here as well. I mean, she looks just a little bit like kind of unraveled here already. Her hair is just a little bit less done up than it was in the previous season. I think she's having this relationship with her daughter that she's kind of, in a way, enjoying, this kind of mirror being reflected back at her as to who she is. And so it's just really, really interesting. And then, of course, there's a knock on the door.
Knock on the door, and who is it? Oh, it's Crazy Lottie.
Oh,
that
my
was great.
gosh.
That was great. I was so happy to see her. And then, of course, we got some other big reveals. She's lost the center. She reveals that, she's kind of starting back from nowhere.
Yeah,
she had
starting back from
nowhere
scratch.
else to
She's
go.
nowhere else to go. I love the fact that immediately we can tell that she is still completely off balance. I'm actually really happy that they're keeping her, the adult version of her, this way. I mean, not to say I want to see someone going through mental illness, but I will say seeing Simone Kessel in this role, it's feeling a little juicy.
Yeah.
I'm kind of enjoying this. And obviously, as the whole episode unravels, there's a lot more of it. But in this scene, there's so much. I mean, I probably wrote the most about this one scene out of the entire episode. There's so many great lines, right? When she opens the door, Shauna opens the door, and she sees her with her suitcases, and she's like, absolutely not.
Yeah, she's like, bye.
And then she refers to Lottie, to Jeff and Callie, I think, or somebody says that she's the Goop sorceress.
Oh, the Goop sorceress.
Do you know what Goop is?
No.
So Goop is the website that Gwyneth Paltrow had, or maybe still has, I'm not sure, where it's this like real upscale, hoity-toity, like kind of like a Martha Stewart, but like for younger, more...
It's the wilderness speaking.
Yeah. So Goop was like everybody kind of like made fun of it because it's like this, rich woman like trying to have spirituality. So that's the reference.
Well,
there.
that's very
right. It reminds me of like
on.
that episode in season 2 when we're kind of introduced to Lottie and she gets the smoothie, and like Lisa brings the smoothie and it's like the wrong one. And
yes, the wrong one. She's like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what was your take on this?
I noted the line that I liked was, she's 5 Datelines worth of problems.
Oh,
and as a big fan
gosh.
of Dateline,
right?
I mean,
no, that was Callie referring to the family, right?
Oh, right.
Not only is the mother a murderer, but Jeff is the accomplice to the murderer, and Callie is the attempted murderer.
Yeah. But I mean, again, anytime you're going to mention Dateline, I'm super excited.
So I guess the thing is that Lottie has nowhere to go because she's lost her intentional community. There's another really great line because Jeff says to Shauna, wait, why can't she just crash on some purple person's futon?
Yeah.
Like there were so many of them, right? Like someone no one else can take her. So yeah, Simone Kessel in this is just so delicious. I'm so excited to see kind of where this goes. And we do see as the episode progresses that she and Callie have this connection. I mean, there was that look when Callie walked in and saw her. Because obviously in the last episode of season 2, Lottie said, oh, wow, she was so impressed by Shauna's daughter. But you can see there's this kind of mutual adoration, like there's this awe in Callie looking to Lottie. But I mean, you can think that maybe a little bit of that is guilt too, because she shot her, but it's more than that. Right?
Well, and then what is very interesting in this scenario too is the fact that Shauna calls Misty and says, can you come over? And doesn't tell her why she's coming over.
Yeah.
Which Walter did call it. He said that these people aren't really your friends, like, because they only need you when they want something.
In other words, they're not there for you when you need them.
Yeah.
They only come to you when they need you, like cleaning up a dead body.
Right. And of course, that's what kind of happens is that Misty gets there all excited about having the sleepover because she's never had one.
She was in the doldrums, right? So far, these 6 weeks probably. She didn't have her friends around her, apparently, during these 6 weeks. She wasn't even told by Ty that Natalie's funeral was then. And so immediately, as soon as Shauna calls, she's excited again. She has a purpose. She can be with the Yellowjackets. And I do think that maybe for these women, there is, that shared trauma that is always going to make them like the top dogs in each other's eyes. Like, that's the bond, right? I mean, that makes sense. But it's just a shame because here Walter could be really good for Misty, just like Kevin could have been really good for Natalie, but they throw that away, like, for the chaos. They throw it away for this trauma.
For it.
Ugh.
The good news is that when Misty comes over, Shauna's like, oh, don't let Callie and Lottie hang out together.
Right.
Like, so what do they start doing? They start organizing the spice cabinet or whatever.
Or the cupboards. And I love it when Misty says something like, oh, we have to alphabetize the pasta, but I'm so confused because it's macaroni and cheese. And like, so they say, should we alphabetize by N cheese? Because, I love an and such. I love an and such. I'm a huge fan of and such.
Treasures and such.
Treasures.
Well, that was an old company.
That in a really long time. Treasures and such. Wow, that takes me back.
Taking him
it's
back.
It's not landing related, by the way.
Well, yes, treasures and such.
Does anybody know about treasures and such?
About treasures and such is it used to be. Have you ever heard of offer up?
I offer.
I thought it was offer up. Yeah, I offer.
Anyway. Years ago, decades ago, even. What's really interesting is that young Callie really is already miles ahead of Misty, right? She spots in the cupboards the Benadryl or whatever, right? The allergy medication, right?
And it looks like grenadine.
Yeah. So magically, Misty, who's not very familiar with the bar cart, you know what I mean? Not like us, not like Natalie. She's not really sure, what she doesn't want to drink too much because she has the hangover. I love it because, she has been told by Shauna to be kind of like Callie's babysitter, right? So she loves having this role. But then as soon as Callie suggests they have a good old fashioned sleepover, Callie brings out the booze and she's like, no. She's like, I have a hangover and Lottie's medicated. Hopefully. I love that. So they get into this whole thing where they're playing some games and they end up playing Truth or Dare. Meanwhile, they're wearing face masks, of course. And I was really hoping that at some point somebody was going to braid somebody's hair.
And it happens.
Because that's what happens at a sleepover.
That's what happens totally at a sleepover.
Tell me about what happens in this game of Truth or Dare. Are any truths really spilled? I don't know.
Not really, but they definitely, Callie is pushing.
She is
to try to find out what really happened out there.
And I think that Lottie is probably open to telling.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, in a way, she kind of says, oh, what we did out there, it wasn't like the way everybody else recolors it.
Yeah.
So in a way, Lottie feels like it was like dignified.
But I think Misty was very protective of it. She was not letting anything go.
Right.
Then, and of course, what happens is that Misty ends up falling asleep, though, right away.
Really quick.
That was quick. So quick. I'm like, oh, really?
So then when Shauna comes home and sees all this, she's like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe, literally, my daughter is braiding Lottie's hair. So what is going to come from that?
I thought it was cute. I mean, hopefully
cute.
Lottie's going to move in.
Yeah.
Be a new
well, I mean, that was so funny when she brought in the suitcase. I was like, oh my gosh. When this whole process of Lottie coming in and the Sadecki family is deciding whether or not they should let her stay because she's so much trouble, right? She could potentially be so much trouble. Callie says to Shauna when she comes in afterwards, she goes, oh, did you tell her to get off the lawn? And then Lottie says, yes, she actually said that. And then Callie said, oh, wow, Mom, you're really giving I want to speak to the manager vibes. And then Shauna says, hell no. And then they throw that at the end of the episode when Shauna says, I want to speak to the
Right,
manager.
I want to speak to the manager.
That was very clever. We'll get to that later because that's a bombshell.
Yeah, that's another
the
bombshell. That's in another scene.
All right, so let's move on to...
So the next scene, I think the next big chunk of scene is the Ty and Van story. And so it was very sweet.
Again,
because,
my favorite.
Yeah, and of course Van is singing a Jamiroquai song on the karaoke, the home karaoke. Because of course she loves her 90s.
What do they call that? Singing machine?
It's like singing machine or whatever, it's one of those.
I love it.
And
so yeah, she loves her 90s, and of course Jamiroquai, Virtual Insanity, which is a very clever tie-in to everything they've been dealing with, right? Virtual Insanity. And I have to say, I love it. I'm wearing my little Bjork shirt, by the way. I forgot to show that off, right? One of my favorite singers from the 90s. Haven't heard any Bjork yet on the show, but I'm assuming eventually maybe. We've heard some Portishead. I want to hear Stereo MCs maybe at some time. That would be good. That'd be good. Putting it out there. We forgot to mention that in the last episode at the end, there was the cover of I Will Survive.
Oh, yeah. I don't know who did that.
Well, it was by Cake. They were big.
Okay. Well,
you were in the UK.
I missed that one.
UK. Anyway, so what happens in that scene?
Well, they are hanging out, and then Ty mentions she's going to go back to the restaurant because she feels bad.
No, Van says that. Van says that was a lot of fun, but I'm feeling a little guilty that we, dined and dashed on that poor waiter who didn't get his tip.
Magically, at that moment, she accidentally steps on the glass, cuts her foot. Ty offers up that she's like, I'll go to the restaurant, you go to urgent care and take care of your foot.
Yeah.
So I thought for a moment when the blood came from the foot, I kept thinking like, is Ty going to just go up and go,
right? Because she used to be chewing on her hand.
Yeah.
I have a question about that because we haven't really seen other Ty this season so far. Like we don't see evidence of that. I mean, Tawny Cypress so far this season looks fabulous.
Looking great.
She does not look like the bags under her eyes from season 2 when she was doing all the sleepwalking.
She's clearly getting sleep.
So
having a good time hanging out with Van.
Oh, that's right. Because remember, Van said, I'm feeling guilty. And Ty says, what? For the sex last night?
Right. So they're fine. Like, that's what I'm really enjoying seeing them enjoying themselves, which is what we kind of saw from the episode 1, too, where, they had fun. Now, unfortunately, that ended up being something traumatic that they didn't know about at that point. But as the scene goes on, what happens is you see Ty goes to the restaurant to settle up the bill. And
she wants to pay cash.
She
doesn't want her name involved because, she's the lawyer who was the senator. She doesn't want to have it.
They say, we're cashless, which, I hate that. That drives me crazy. Come on. If somebody wants to pay cash.
Yeah, give me the money any which way.
Take it. You know what I mean? It's like stupid. But anyway, so they didn't take the cash.
The waitress or the maitre d', she's like, oh, it's just a really weird day around here.
Yeah, she's like, and I don't really know how to do this.
Right.
So then,
she's the fill-in for the maitre d' who, had the heart attack because they dined and dashed.
Right. So then at that point, Thaisa sees the picture and the candles and she puts 2 and 2 together and it's like, oh shit. So she grabs her credit card and they're like,
she out.
They're like ready to come get her. They want to know who she is. So she just bails.
And then she goes to
it's like a Pentecostal church.
Yes.
We have all over our neighborhood.
Right. It's interesting because she takes with her the matches. The name of the restaurant was
Padam.
Which means no soul.
Ooh,
in French.
Creepy.
Kind of unusual name for a restaurant, if you ask me. But anyway, it's interesting because she goes there.
Maybe it's a non-soul food restaurant.
She goes there and she puts the matches from the restaurant into this altar, and it burns up. And let's be honest, we don't know at the end of the episode officially, but we can tell that Ty is keeping something from Van, right? She's keeping from Van that this guy had a heart attack and they caused this to happen. And you can tell that Van is also hiding something from Thaisa after she went to urgent care because she had the glass stuck in her foot.
And I'm sure we could figure that out. We're pretty sure, right? One would surmise that Van is going to be cured of cancer because
magically.
Remember at the end of season 2, it was said that
Lottie said, "Oh, the wilderness was happy with the sacrifice.
Happy, it was gonna.
You will see.
You'll see. Yeah.
And clearly we still see that Lottie out of whatever therapy she was in, and she did say to Misty, listen, I don't have to stay anywhere if I don't want to. They don't have to keep me. Because Misty said, or was it Misty or Shauna said, oh, geez, I could see they let you out right on time or something. Like, I think it was Misty.
Yeah.
Because she still believes this. Lottie still believes that it needed whatever that sacrifice was and that it chose and that it was happy with who it chose, Natalie. Natalie was meant to die in that moment. Because Misty obviously is still feeling guilt and she's looking at Lottie like, oh my gosh. And Lottie's saying, don't feel the guilt. It chose Natalie. You really had nothing to do with it, you know?
Yeah. Well, fair enough. It's true.
Yeah. Well,
guess.
in the context of
the context
show.
of what the show is, yeah.
And so now let's go back to the childhood and that whole Lottie situation, because let's be honest, you know, in the last episode when she was talking to Travis, she was like, oh yeah, I'm off my meds and this is, and you kind of felt like she was kind of coming clean. But what you can see is that Lottie is still suffering.
And she's kind of a pusher. I was going to say, Travis has said, he says, I don't need this anymore. It doesn't want me. It wants somebody else. But she's still pushing to give these magic mushrooms because she's like, you're going to be able to connect with it.
Right.
And she keeps going and going and going.
This connection is because remember, he gets so like upset at that one moment and he goes to choke Lottie.
Yeah.
And if we remember in season 2, when Lottie says to Natalie what happened to Travis was that he was trying to connect with the darkness.
Right.
And that's why he did the auto asphyxiation to get close to it. So this is Lottie. Lottie basically, in, you know, having the mental illness and it's being unchecked and unmedicated, she put this into Travis's head. In essence, she really did kill Travis in the end, whether the remote control was broken or not, because she put this into his head.
Put the idea in his head.
Ooh.
Oh, Lottie.
Oh, Lottie. Lottie is really a trip. She is a trip.
She is a trip.
Whoa.
I'm enjoying watching it.
I am enjoying watching it. I hate to say it because, you know, you don't want to be like rooting for mental illness or anything like that, but Simone Kessel in particular is really playing it with this kind of juiciness that you want to see more of. One more thing that you mentioned about Travis, right? Saying it doesn't want me. It doesn't want me. It feels more of a connection to her. And he's referencing Aquila because Aquila has the special connection with the animals.
She gave him the duck to take care of.
Right. And I noticed that, you know, the duck has the long neck and there was Travis like moments ago, like strangling Lottie. So I do think that probably we are going to lose Aquila this season. That is my guess in this moment. If
I would think so. It's going to take Aquila.
I really like Aquila. Now, we had talked about this in the last, the recap for season 2 about how they were building up Aquila and Mari basically to be breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or at least breakfast and lunch, or lunch and dinner. So let's talk about the Mari situation, right?
Oh, yeah.
Natalie and Misty go out looking for Mari during the day. And once again, you see that Natalie is protecting Coach Ben.
Right, because she sees a trap. They're going in one direction, and she tries to deflect Misty's attention somewhere else. She's like, I think we should go south, whatever.
There are berries over there, too.
Yeah,
well,
and so then, everywhere. Of course, Misty sees it, clocks onto it.
She clocks on.
But she just pretends like she is okay with everything.
It's interesting that Misty, though, suddenly is kind of like not Team Ben, because obviously she was so attracted to him before. She does kind of like, in a way, they call it retconning, you know, where you change the way things were in the past, because now she's kind of saying stuff like, oh, you know, Coach Ben made me fall in love with him, and oh, we ended our relationship so sweetly last summer or whatever, because now she's kind of like anti-Ben.
Yeah, but obviously they have all made these boogeyman stories about Coach Ben and him burning down the cabin. Now, the other reveal that comes out of this is he has said to Mari that he did not know that the cabin burned down.
What do you think about that?
I could believe it. Maybe there's something else going on.
The first time he said it, when Mari said to him, oh my gosh, you know, we all think you burned down the cabin, I was like, I don't know if I believe him. But then the second time he said it, I kind of believe it. And I think the way that he is, the kind of guy that he is, I don't think he would do it.
Yeah, he just said he was going to steer clear from all that.
Right.
So,
he's like, I found a place to hide, and I'm staying away from you people after you ate Javi.
and then here's the other thing. When we're sitting there, when he's got Mari, if he was a sinister person, he could have stuck a dagger in her and killed her or whatever.
Well, there is a moment where you're thinking maybe he's going to do that, right? So basically what he does is...
Well, he helps her reset her leg.
Right, helps her reset
it's dislocated.
The leg, and then he... somehow with some strength he pulls her out of that pit, and then he sticks the noose around her, and you think, oh my gosh.
But he tells her, I'm not going to hurt you, and then he covers her eyes, and then we then flash to the cave
finally.
And so at that point, what's kind of the act where he's a good guy is he gives her a drink, and she's like,
hot chocolate.
What is it? And it's hot chocolate, and she is just digging it. So I think that's going to be a good friendship going on.
It's really, really interesting on a couple levels here, right? Okay, because it's hot chocolate, which was the same drink that Jackie envisioned or whatever in that moment where she's passing, and she's given that as sustenance, is the hot chocolate. Obviously, Coach Ben found all these amazing supplies, and he tells Mari that he's found this. And then there's an interesting moment because she also says, she gives a reveal to him that we didn't kill Javi on purpose. He fell through the cracks and whatever. And we're not doing that anymore. Like he said, meaning eating people. But she didn't reveal the fact that they drew cards to hunt somebody.
Right. She didn't go there. Maybe that'll come out in the next episode. We'll see.
Now, I will say that this is the ultimate Stockholm syndrome, if there ever was one, right? Because she is basically in this cave with this dude, and, he's not going to let her out because he says to her, am I wrong in thinking that I would be the next person that you would kill even if I didn't burn down the cabin, right? This is what's going to happen because he has kind of ostracized himself from the group. He didn't eat Jackie. He was of no help when Shauna was giving birth. And so, he's not wrong.
But the interesting thing about all this is I'm still so intrigued to know what's going on in that cave because first and foremost, what has he been eating? Okay. And two, who is he talking to? Is he talking to himself? Is he lost it too?
There was a moment earlier where he was talking to himself, right? When Mari was there, he's like, I don't know what to do. I don't know. Or something
right. And he said the same thing.
I just need a
moment.
moment.
But he said the same thing again.
He did.
Yeah.
But in the cave, it sounded almost more like he was talking to
And there was a
else.
little light. I saw a little light glowing. I don't know what that was.
Yes.
So, hopefully we'll find out more.
Ooh, I love it.
Ooh, intriguing. So, yeah, we'll see where that storyline goes. Now, what about the dinner, the business dinner?
There's a lot going on there that I wasn't, in a way, almost couldn't follow, what was really going on here. But basically what was happening was that these two business dudes who were going to be opening up this hotel or maybe renovating the Jolly Hitcher, which was the same hotel that Shauna and Adam had sex in season one.
All right.
So Jeff wants to get, Jeff wants to get this business,
He wants the account.
Right. He wants the account to get all this mid-century modern stuff in the newly renovated hotel. And these total douchebags.
Total douches.
Right. And it was really funny because I don't know if you caught this, probably you didn't catch this, but they make a point of saying that the one guy's name was Joel and that basically all Joels are douchebags. And I think that's a joke because the actor Joel McHale will be joining the cast this season. I think that was kind of a little in-joke there.
Okay. All
but
right.
what ends up happening is that these guys are such a-holes. And Shauna is just not having it.
Well, then they leave the table while they're doing the business meeting because, they see somebody they know, right?
Yeah.
And they say some kind of remarks as well about her being on her phone.
Yeah.
But
she's checking in on Misty to see what's going on at the sleepover.
She's
back
stressing
home.
out. So, of course, she's like, oh, Jeff, you can handle it on your own. But then she excuses herself and goes to the bathroom. And then we have a very weird moment going on here because she's sitting in the toilet and she's checking her phone. And then you see somebody comes in and there's shoes.
Stops right in front of the stall of the toilet.
And then that was what got a little weird. Did the lights all go out?
Yeah. The lights must have gone out, but we didn't really know what was going on, right? Ourselves as our viewers. The lights go off, and then apparently there's a phone left in another stall, and up comes the song Queen of Hearts.
Queen of Hearts, which is one of our favorites,
Juice Newton.
Juice Newton. Can't go wrong with Juice Newton.
I mean...
And then there's a picture.
The Queen card.
Yeah, the Queen card.
Playing with the Queen of Hearts.
So that's a message to
Shauna knows
Shauna.
immediately something is up.
So she takes the phone and she brings it to the bar and she turns it in. And I guess what happens subsequently is that she's calling up later on to try to find out.
Now, Shauna doesn't know that there's been
picked up the
a
phone.
mini DV sent to her house, right?
Right, she has
that
no
knowledge
idea.
is still not there, but she's still very aware that the song Playing with the Queen of Hearts has to have some sort of message, and the phone said no caller ID.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why she's so kind of adamant about following up with that.
So when she calls up and she's like, I want to speak to the manager.
Yes, she says it. I want to
wanna
speak to the manager. So she is that person.
But do they say it was picked up by a woman? Is that
Well, I think what
it's
she then,
kinda
because
like-
doesn't she call back, I want to speak to the manager, and so then she says, what did that person look like?
Right. So we don't hear the other end of the conversation, unfortunately.
Right.
We don't know.
But we can surmise through the editing back and forth from the teen storyline to the adult storyline that this must be Melissa. Who must be Hilary Swank.
Yes, must be Hilary Swank.
Must be. We don't fully have that information.
And of course,
verified,
we get one of the biggest reveals of all at the end of the episode, which is that...
So Shauna goes to visit the grave and she sees there's flowers on her baby's grave.
Yeah.
Well, she didn't know that anybody knew where she had reburied the baby. And then she hears snapping and twigs. And
one person.
Melissa, who apparently is in love with Shauna.
Is in love with Shauna. She kind of almost like pledges her allegiance to her.
She basically says, I'm so impressed with the way that you deal with all of what's going on out here. And then she just plants a big kiss on her.
And it's funny because we called this from episode 1.
From episode 1, people, because Shauna kisses her back. The Shauna that wasn't the Shauna that we had saw in season 1, episode 1, may not have kissed her back. But the Shauna that we saw in episode 1 of season 1 would kiss her back because we saw those looks from Shauna to Jackie several times in that episode.
I think it's going to get crazy.
This kind of, this like loving looks. We thought, oh, maybe she's just hiding the fact, from Jackie that she's sleeping with her boyfriend, Jeff, and all this kind of stuff. No, she was in love with Jackie. Come on.
Totally.
In the very first scene, we see them. Jackie's coming out of her house, or Jeff pops out of the window, and then she comes out, and Shauna's like, she's ticked off. She's not. She's ticked off.
She's jealous.
She's jealous, not of Jackie. She's jealous of Jeff.
I've been there down that road before. Haven't you ever been jealous of that kind of a thing?
Yeah.
And
then later on in that same episode, of the pilot episode, they're at that party afterwards, kind of before they go to nationals. And again, Jackie is canoodling with Jeff, and you see that look from Shauna. She's jealous of Jeff. And maybe that's why she wanted to be closer with Jeff, because she could feel the connection then with Jackie, who she could never have, because Jackie was not into her in the same way.
And it wasn't the right time. It was the 90s.
It was the 90s.
Well, I mean, clearly it was okay later, but maybe they needed a little bit more time out there in the wilderness before it was okay.
Yeah. Wow. That was wild.
That was the big reveal.
To be wild.
It's going to be wild, kids. Wow. So I'm excited about the next episode.
Too. I'm excited
and I
as
think
well.
now the problem is you'd like to see 2 episodes every week. But unfortunately, we won't. We'll get
now
1.
We're going to be strung out a little bit.
However, it will be better for us because if we're recapping, we don't have to do 2 in one day.
Right.
Because it's a lot.
I mean, there's only so many items of clothing in our wardrobe. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I do think it's interesting, again, this dynamic of Shauna being sort of like the other team, right? The other tribe is forming with Melissa will obviously be on Team Shauna, right?
Yeah.
And it ties into something that happened at the end of last season that we failed to talk about. If you remember, when the cabin goes on fire, Shauna doesn't actually wake up and smells the smoke. She's already awake because she's writing in her journal, why is it Natalie? Why does Natalie get to be the next queen? Why isn't it me? It's interesting too, because there's another scene in the episode where Ty and Van are talking,
right? And
Van says,
that,
"Oh,
you should be it."
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was saying. As we kind of said this maybe before, I think it's going to keep switching.
Yeah, it's going to probably keep switching.
The leader will be the leader for a while.
We are going to see these tribes, right?
Yeah.
And I think we're seeing that this season is going to break apart and fracture, and we are going to get to this point where they are literally going to be trapping and killing each other. I mean, and we were talking about the pit as well. We said this, I think, off
Pit's
camera.
already there.
The pit is there. If the pit wasn't already there, would they have come up with the idea for the pit? Would they have been able to construct the pit? Maybe not.
It's a lot of work.
The pit is there, giving them an idea for the future. All right, a couple more things I wanted to say. We're talking about Mari and Ben in the cave and some of the things they were revealing, because if Mari says something like, "Oh, did you hear the screaming?" or something like that. So she heard it too.
Oh, okay.
So it wasn't just Mari screaming out there. She heard the screaming trees. The screaming trees is another thing we don't quite know what is going on.
Well, I'm sure we're going to find out more.
Another good little needle drop we had in this episode was, of course, Fiona Apple, criminal. Again, they're very subtle. You know, they put in the virtual insanity from Jamiroquai. I mean, that was the biggest hit from Jamiroquai, I guess. But also, virtual insanity is a clever song. And then, of course, criminal, Fiona Apple, another clever one. That is, again, I believe, during the sleepover with Misty. And I just want to say something about that. That poor Misty, she just has to take it from everybody. She takes it from her own generation, and now she's taking it from the younger generation too, because Callie is just like steamrolling right over her.
Poor
What
Misty.
did you think about, though, her treatment of our dear Walter?
I was kind of sad at that moment because she says, "Why are you fussing over me?" and da 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 da. But the reality is, she does need somebody to fuss over her.
If she had someone to fuss over her, and she allowed herself to accept that in her life, she wouldn't be focusing on all this other insanity, virtual insanity.
Yeah, so she needs that. But then she kind of reiterates, the bond that she has with the girls, which, I think we kind of talked about before, that is something that goes through all those characters. Like at the end, they almost like drop everything for their Yellowjackets.
I guess we don't know what ends up happening with Melissa and what all these dynamics are, but it is interesting because there have been times in the past, like say in season 1, maybe it was with Jessica Roberts, maybe it was in between other little conversations where they say, "Oh, have you heard from anybody else?"
Mm-hmm.
Meaning the other people that aren't there. At the time, it would have been Lottie, would have been one of them, but I suppose Melissa is probably another, right?
Yeah.
So what's that dynamic keeping them apart? Well, for Shauna, it might be the fact that they had a love affair out there.
Yeah,
and then Shauna went back to Jeff when they got back
to Jeff. Now, speaking of that, the final scene of Jeff and Shauna together too was a bit rough too, because obviously Shauna, totally ripped those guys apart because she just felt like they were treating Jeff so poorly. And
she's just like, "I don't want you to work with them."
I thought it was cool. She was calling them out because they were being jerks. The guy was like, "Oh, I'm a self-made hotelier."
Yeah.
And what does your dad do? "Oh, he was a hotel person." It's like, "Hello, Nepo baby." Come on. Don't be playing that stuff.
Yeah.
So we've all been there.
But I mean, in terms where Jeff is coming from, he's just trying to provide for his family, and the business was the business, and it's just like, So I can see where this is not going to do Shauna any favors in terms of
maybe
Jeff.
Shauna needs to do commercials for the furniture,
Oh,
wouldn't that be good, like local commercials
on a big old piece of meat and being like, "Come on down and
get your mid-century modern Danish modern cadenza.
Blood.
Would you like an armoire?"
Listen,
we got armoires coming out of our ears.
Oh shit, I love it.
Terrible. So have we got anything else we need to cover? I think we kind of covered it.
I think we pretty much did. We talked about some of our favorite lines. We talked about, again, I think some of my favorite scenes again were still the Ty and Van, although I really, really enjoy the Coach Ben and Mari. I think it's a really interesting dynamic.
I'm totally digging that storyline.
Yeah.
I want to know more.
I'm very
intrigued.
To it. Really looking forward to it.
That mystery of what's going down in the cave.
It kind of, in a way, almost reminds me of like a lot of these shows that we love from our favorite time period of like the late 70s, early 80s. They're always in a cave. These
Land of the Lost.
Every single show ends up in a cave, whether it's the Brady Bunch or...
No, there's a slee stack in there.
It's
going to be like a slee stack, a Chaka-Ari. Wouldn't that be great? Gosh. I mean, the people are going to be like, "What the hell are you talking about?" But anyway, that's the Sid and Marty Krofft in me.
All right. Well, now we are coming in for a landing on this episode. We're going to get right down to the Lotus Point and find out just how highbrow or lowbrow this episode of Yellowjackets was. Doug, what did you rate this episode of Yellowjackets
So
on the Brown Meter?
between 1 and 5,
Yes.
I'm not going to rate this one as high as the other one. I think it was a little lower brow. So I'll give it a 3.25. Okay.
3.25.
Between 1 and 5.
Okay.
I mean, it was still, it's very good, super well written, but there was definitely a little bit more of the comedic.
Yes.
And not as much of the highbrow.
I'm even going to give it lower. I'm going to give it a 3. I just think that the babysitting sleepover felt a little clunky there. I get what they're trying to do here. We're trying to get these relationships kind of solidified so we can move forward with the storyline. So I appreciate that. And I really am actually interested to see where the Lottie and Callie situation goes. I think that Sarah, I always say this, Sarah, because I like to say the last name. Desjardins. I just think she's really good. I think she's really, really good.
She's a scene stealer.
Yeah. And so I think we're going to see more of this, the Shauna, Callie, again, this mirroring of who
maybe
each
it'll
other
be
is.
like Callie will become the mini-me of Lottie, like they could be like hanging out, girl power, kind of, that'd be fun. Going out, get the nails done.
Yes. Okay, so I think we are now going to be looking ahead to the next episode. Doug, would you like to read the synopsis for the next episode?
I'm shocked you could actually find it out.
It's called,
already.
I think it's called Them's the Breaks, or Them's the Breaks.
Okay, next on Seaview Circle, the return of a yellow jacket sparks a vengeful frenzy in the ill-tempered team. Lottie's rendition of Cool Aunt without kids leaves Callie with an open door to answers about her mother's twisted past. Ty and Van receive a substantial karmic payout for their dine and dash. Oh.
Do you think that's going to be good karma or bad karma?
I don't know. We'll just have to wait. Got a
All
week.
right. Well, stay hungry, friends, and we will see you then back on the sack. Thank you for spending some time with us. Have a great week.
Bye.
All right, bye.